Hello, welcome to Animal Audit Corner. Now, guess what? Looks like I'm finally going to get Miss Kim on my show. Now, if she, excuse makeup, and if she comes on today, that'll be fine. If she wants to call and make a schedule, then that'll be fine too. But I got a story, and it's another day of protesting on Friday for Club Brain Frog on Friday. I thought it was on Thursday, but no, it was on Friday. The California native may bright and sensible when she is being and loving, caring to Scientologists. But what happened that day, you'll never believe it. And we're gonna get to that a little bit later. She has been known for saying the cutest things to everyone in the test center, which is so which is yeah, adorable and cute. But Club Brain Frog would have all the knowledge about that organization. And usually when people are protesting, they normally do have the knowledge, just like the shows that you see about Scientology in a platform similar to mine. She would always be smart about being the one to fill filled with all the sources of information, just like everybody else out there in the protest world and the show platform like mine's. Club Brain Fog really had what it takes to protest Scientology. But if only she doesn't do that alone because of an incident that happened on that day with a sandwich board. And this is the one that says free donuts and coffee. Like, they're gonna give anything to anyone unless they get something out of it. Then she looked behind her shoulder, and a Scientology sees her. That person shut the door immediately. That's what they always do whenever a protester is around. And as usual, they would have a sign outside their door that says free coffee and donuts. They would have those they have that's the way they draw people into their deceitful web. They would do anything to try and get people into their stupid little cult. Then a sign falls on Club Brain Frog. So she would go to the door to and opens it. Then she tells whoever's in there that the sandwich board falls on her. She was telling them that the sandwich board fell on her, then they would turn it into an issue. They didn't even acknowledge the fact that it happened. Then the woman inside tells her to have a nice day. So Club Brain Fog had no choice but to shut the door and go back to her spot. You see, this is one of the things Scientology does. Instead of asking her if she was okay, they got cocky with her. And I'll bring that clip at the end of this story. Then she started to show that sandwich board just sitting there on the ground, and they were just letting it just sit there for about 10 minutes before getting it, which was a real hazard. If someone were to walk by and trips over it or falls on it, it can either sprain their ankle or they can break the whole leg. I mean, those people are not realistic. Then finally, one of the members of that cult finally comes out of the building with an attitude problem. Of course, she did turn the camera away from them. She was more classier than they were, put it this way. They just had no morals whatsoever. But not just that, half of it is the brainwashing, the other half of them is just being obnoxious. Of course, they could have watched what they were saying, but they didn't. So she turns around, turns her camera from the door, and the guy grabbed the sign and goes back in. Yeah, I don't think he acknowledged that that thing fell on her. Nobody in that test center ever acknowledged it. And they said communication is the universe's solvent. They weren't communicating with her, but they didn't do that. No way. They were being obnoxious, so they weren't communicating at all. They didn't even acknowledge that that thing fell on her. Now, she's got a bruised up ankle, that's for sure. And I hope she didn't have to go to the doctor. So I think the best thing she could have done was put ice on it. Her ankle started to bruise up, like I just mentioned. When that thing fell on her, it just started. That thing fell on her and then didn't even bother to ask her if she was okay. That's how caring they really are. They don't care if anyone gets hurt because the Scientologists who were programmed to do is not react that way. So the other half is them, and the other half is David Miscavige brainwashing them. They're totally brainwashed. I don't think they realize what they're doing is wrong. But you know what? Of course, some of them wants to help another person, but they're really not helping anybody. Of course, some of them sweet enough to help. That's what they thought they were there for, but they're there for the free labor. They're working free labor because David Miscavige has them working that way. And not only that, he delivered some of the slave labor to his buddy Tom. That's the way David Miscavige programmed them, and we all know how much of a monster he is. As you recall, Confident Chris got beaten up by a street guy that Scientology paid. He had his head stapled and he needed stitches. That's how badly beaten he was. I mean, they don't care. And then for years, they've been pulling the wool over people's eyes. And the man that did it said he did it to use the money to get a Big Mac at McDonald's. Of course, it was a homeless guy. They take advantage of the homeless too. And they gave him money to go beat him up. But Chris identified him, called the LAPD. LAPD cuffed him and then uncuffed him. That's how much they're working for Scientology. They do anything for Scientology, including help them break the law, which they're not supposed to be doing either. They're there to serve the best interest of the public. They weren't serving Chris's best interest. That officer uncuffed him as soon as he cuffed him. Cuffed him and then uncuffed him. Then in Denver, of course, you know, Denver J got assaulted, and then the Scientologist that did it broke his phone. Of course, it wasn't really damaged beyond repair. I don't think it does, because it was still filming, or unless he had one phone filming and then the other phone used for calls. But yeah, that Scientologist, they didn't really care. So people hurt to them don't matter. It don't matter to them whether or not anyone gets hurt. And if the celebrities say otherwise, guess what? They're lying. They're lying big time. Another viewer points out a mountain in Scientology logo right in the middle of the public property. Yeah. It's not even on their step. Now, if it was on the step, it would be another story, but it was on public property. Did they really ask to even put that thing there in the first place or get some kind of permit? I mean, whether or not it's against the law, I don't know. She also realized that they took up an entire spot in Cleveland, Clearwater, Florida, that was on public property. They have the habit of taking over. Just look what they did to the government. They infiltrated them. They started back the moment they opened, and L. Ron Hubbard went as back as the 1950s to make plans and infiltrating the government. And then finally in 1970, they went through with it. And of course, a bunch of Scientologists were put on trial along with Mary Sue Hubbard, who led that operation, were arrested, tried, and was found guilty. Mary Sue Hubbard, as you recall, served 5 years in prison or jail, something like that. So putting that thing on a public sidewalk without permission is selfish. Those people think they're above the law. So Club Bran Fog plans on using chalk to cover the whole thing up the next time she's there. I hope she does. I hope she puts in a "you blank" sign all around that circle. And the prop they have on top of the blue building in the infamous Scientology building in Los Angeles, that is just a prop. They don't think much of it. They use that to draw Christians in. Then nevertheless, Club Bran Fog had a painful protest that day since that sign fell on her ankle. Even though it got bruised, she really stood up to them. She definitely stood tall. Mm. But overall, she came out of it okay. Then all in all, she conducted herself great and was strong when she was walking back to her car. And if she felt any pain, she didn't really show it. She was really strong, and she hung in there and she stood tall. And in conclusion, she showed Scientology what she was made of. Now, I got the clip from that day. Oh, jeez. Darn it. Let's see here. Um, this is it. Okay. I got it. And now here it is. And there it is. That was the most obnoxious thing anyone can say. And you saw that they didn't acknowledge it in conclusion. That thing just fell on her, as you saw. They didn't even acknowledge it. Instead, they got cocky. The lady said, "Have a nice day." They didn't even ask her if she was all right. Anyhow, that's what happened that day. Now we're going on from that to Aaron Smith, Levin, and the crew on Growing Up in Scientology is picketing on Friday. I got the next clip ready to show you. at the end of this story on what they actually did. So, here we go. Aaron Levin, as you know, in growing up in Scientology, who is one of the protesters. Yeah. He is with other protesters such as Farrell Cheryl, Dusty Soda Fountain, Jamie, Erica, Mindy. They were new protesters too coming in. There were a bunch of college students. Wasn't that so great? So that besides them, there were even more coming in. Aaron is America's favorite former Scientologist who is all smiles on Friday's protest. Aaron and the rest of the protesters are Scientology's worst nightmare. Every single weekend, not just that weekend. Because they always present themselves as victims all the time when they're not. None of them are victims. The only victims there were are the protesters, because you just saw what happened to Club Bran Fog when that sign fell on her. Instead, they said, "Oh, have a nice day." And the guy in there got cocky. I don't remember what he said, but he got cocky. Like I just showed you. Club Bran Fog was the victim, not anyone in that building, in that Scientology building. Scientology are not victims. They are the perpetrators who attack people. As you know, every Friday, Aaron, along with Cheryl, Erica, and Jamie, protests. Of course, Mindy's also there. And there were new protesters as well. Hopefully, they'll show up every single Friday. Last week, OSA put a flatwood along with nuts, bolts, and nails to build it in right on public property, which is a total violation. Of course, Dusty Soda Fountain. Oh, yeah, I said it right. Dusty Soda Fountain looked it up. Sure enough, those are not supposed to be there. Of course, you know, they do whatever they want. Because they didn't want them to protest so-called religion. Then they also installed a water bomb so they can't blast all the protesters if they tried to protest their organization again. But you know what? Aaron and the protesters got it covered. But Aaron, they had the whole protest in a beach party like theme, which was a cute idea. So Aaron and the rest of the protesters had the last word. They even had their swimsuits on, so those guys were smart when they came up with that one. It was so cute. And they even had pizza and donuts, which they have every Friday. Every Friday on a protest, so it's nothing new. Boy, I wish I was there. But guess what? If I was there every Friday, I'd probably get even bigger. But I'll probably have salads the rest of the week. Then OSA security guard, or yeah, called the police because they were thinking Aaron and the rest of the protesters of the crew was trespassing, which they weren't. They were within their rights to be there and protest when they want to. The police went up to Aaron and told them that he was going to come right back. Then they came back with a Scientology security guard that OSA security went up to Aaron and said if he trespassed, he would get arrested. He didn't. He was within his rights to be there. Then the police knew that the protesters didn't break any laws, but the Scientologists did so he showed the he showed the police excuse me, I got a tear in my eye. The flat wood they placed on public property right right by their property, which actually they thought it was theirs, but it wasn't. When the police saw it, they knew having that there was a violation, but they didn't do anything. They said that they were going to investigate it. Then they went off on their merry way. I don't yeah. First of all, they were supposed to acknowledge it and go back and tell them about it. And yeah, I don't think they're gonna investigate it. I hope they do, like they said they would do, but I don't think they're gonna investigate it. And to tell you the truth, if it was the police station down the street from me, they would have told the person to get rid of it. Nobody can get away with any of the crap that they would pull like Scientology. If there was a Scientologist in this neighborhood and he did something, they're not going to excuse it. They're going to tell them that they're breaking the law and that they were going to go to jail. So the police station down the street from me wouldn't allow something like that. That day, it was raining. but they would continue to protest anyway. But eventually, the rain would slow down a bit. They were outside for hours protesting in the rain, and nothing would stop them from picketing, not even the rain. I bet you Scientologists would hope they leave, but they didn't. They stood their ground and were protesting. Aaron even tried to show a bolt of lightning, but it stopped because no one saw it when he pointed it in the air. So it stopped. But yeah, it looks so prettier on the inside. But luckily, they weren't in the middle of the field, so it would be okay. Then the entire crew was out picketing for about 3 hours in the wet weather. And they didn't even care. They wanted to be there, out there to tell Scientology what they exactly thought. And of course, as you know, they had their Tom Cruise board or whatever it's called. They were all having a good time, letting the cult know how they were really feeling about their cruel practices. Of course, when Louis Miguel, well, okay, I don't remember his name. I'll call them what Aaron called and the rest of the protesters call him Joey Meatballs. Yeah, that's the name they called him. Aaron definitely told Scientology that day that the SPV Foundation will be there for them when they want to leave. And of course, when OSA security guard or Scientology security guard told him that, he told him that the Aftermath Foundation would be there for him. He followed him to that other building saying that same thing. If there's anybody that wanted to leave Scientology, the Aftermath Foundation will help them, including that obnoxious security guard. Yeah. Oh yeah, his name was Ricardo. That's it. Okay. But overall, Aaron and the crew really put their foot down with OSA as well. Then, nevertheless, Aaron Smith Levin, as you know, in growing up in Scientology, who is one of the protesters, were there protesting. Then ultimately that day, when it was raining, they would continue to protest anyway. But eventually, the rain would slow down bit by bit. After, in conclusion, no, after in closing, Aaron and the Clearwater crew would have the last word and not Scientology. But in conclusion, him and the rest of the crew had such a wild time sticking it to Osa. Now, I got the clip of the decoration they left in front of the Fort. Oh, wait, was it the Fort Harrison Hotel? I think it was. Was it part of the hotel? Well, anyway, here's a clip. Oh, no, it wasn't that. Jeez. Sorry, it wasn't that. Let me get the other one. No, 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 not that. Not yet. Let's see here. All right, here it is.
Figure this field for an hour, but this CRM sucks.
Oh, and there it is. Yeah, those people think they own the street. Unbelievable. They put the nuts and bolts on top of those flatwoods and then installed a water bomb in there to keep protesters off. But as you know, they had it covered by making a beach party-like theme, and they had their swimsuits on, which was a bright idea. So Aaron and the protesters had the last word, as you can see. Okay. Now, as you know, last week I did a story on Laura's dad and Scientology's hate site, where Laura's dad was talking about his daughter. And of course, you know who might have been there? David Miscavige himself. But I can hand it to them unless they were subtle. But you know what? He never should have done that. But however, I had an idea. Last week, I told people to go to the site, give it a thumbs down. And if they wanted the vent, to go ahead and do it. If they don't, that's fine. If they don't want to go on and give them a thumbs down, then hey, that would have been fine. But you know what? Go to the site, thumbs down. That will be the finger to them. So that would show you how we really feel. And they did it. And not only did it, out of all days, they did it on Father's Day. So support Laura and her dad by going to that site, giving it a thumbs down. Okay. All in all, on my site, this is my site. Hit the like, press subscribe, and I'll definitely see you tomorrow.